First of all, I wanted to thank Pastor James for opening up a church like this. That's really cool. I mean, y'all already known that, but I didn't know that y'all had moved here. That's really cool. But I want to make sure I understand this right. The pastor of this church actually is a Republican precinct chair? That's amazing. That's when you know you're in a conservative county, and the pastor's a precinct chair. So I also want to congratulate y'all for doing such an amazing job of filling precinct chairs. That's huge what y'all just did. It's happened in Hood County, it's happened in Parker County, maybe not to the same extent y'all done it here, but that's going to pay big dividends in the future. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Andy Hopper for inviting me to introduce the topic and the speaker tonight. I had actually some really good things to abuse Andy about, but he was so worried about what I might say, he left his dinner with Lynn Stuckey early to come over here to make sure that I behaved tonight. So you really blew it. I had some really good stuff against you. It's not so I will mention one though. How many of the Wise County conservatives are aware of the fact that you were a state champion discus thrower? Andy? I'm sorry. Okay, good. You didn't hear that. So anyway, be sure to congratulate him on the way out. Because he is sometimes a humble person, so he needs to be appreciated for that. But anyway, first slide. So I'm going to begin with 3 announcements, and then I'm going to introduce the topic for tonight and introduce the amazing speaker we have on deck. But on November 11th, Veterans Day, we have our 2nd annual North Texas or Patriot Shootout, and this is the 2nd annual one. The first annual one, I'm embarrassed to say that Wise County won, but I'm on to Bruce Cunningham. I'm not sure it's Bruce here tonight because he pulled some tactics, and I'm on to him now. And I know what he did, and we're going to be ready for it. And I can guarantee you that Parker County is going to be prevailing on November 11th. So anyway, the second thing, if y'all haven't been to one of these before, we had one about a year ago, Parker County Conservatives. It's a conservative activist training is what I call it. They actually call it citizens advocates training. But I just learned about this when I got here. Is this, Andy, and I had a question for your son and he didn't really know, but it said register for one or more of these classes. Are these all different classes?
Yes. Yeah, they're doing a different thing this time. So every one of those classes you see in bold there are individual classes that you can sign up for.
So like you don't have to go to all of them, just go to one of them.
If you just want to run for office, you take the campaign training. You have to, so whatever, mix and match, whatever. You want to go all day,
you can I guess go down there and spend the night and you go Friday night and be there the next morning if you want to. So anyway, if you haven't done it, I highly recommend it, and it's just going to make you more of an effective conservative activist. So then this coming August 11th is going to be, if you want to go to the next slide, the Wise County Republican Party Executive Committee is going to be voting on censorship of our rock-solid conservative John Cornyn. And I was told to maybe just read real briefly some of the censor language, but I was just going to pick out some highlights, but it's so good I'm just going to try to read most of it really quickly. So I'll start with second paragraph. Whereas Rule 44 of the Republican Party of Texas allows the party to censor a Republican office holder who takes 3 or more actions during a biennium in opposition to the core principles of the Republican Party of Texas platform, and whereas Senator John Cornyn voted in favor of H.R. 7691 with over $40 billion in spending, as he has voted multiple times supporting excessive continuing budget resolutions, and I'll skip on a little further, whereas John Cornyn has supported further restrictions on gun ownership by voting in favor of Senate Bill 2938, which infringes on the right of people to bear arms. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And their RPT Principle 4, which states, we believe in limiting government powers to those items enumerated in the United States and Texas Constitutions, and in violation of RPT, Republican Party of Texas Principle 8, which states, we believe in the inalienable right of all people to defend themselves and their property. Whereas on June 14th, and this is the one that I actually was not aware of, John Cornyn introduced Senate Bill 4403, the USA Civics Act, and co-sponsored Senate Bill 4384, the Civics Secures Democracy Act, You know how the Democrats love to play with those words. Both of which authorized billions of dollars in grant money to be dispersed by the Secretary of the Department of Education for programs which accomplish the objective of striking traditional American history, free institutions or Western civilization, and inserting American political thought and history, free institutions, or the impact of American representative democracy and constitutional democracy globally, which clearly fosters the imposition of critical race theory and social issues, eroding historically accurate portrayals of America's foundation. Therefore, be it resolved that in accordance with Rule 44 of the Republican Party of Texas, the Executive Committee of the Republican Party of Wise County, a quorum being present by vote of at least 2/3 present and voting, hereby censors Senator John Cornyn and a public office holder representing the entirety of Wise County for actions violating 3 of the core principles of the RPD platform. And basically what they do is if this gets passed, it's basically, in itself, it's not the censor, they're recommending censor, and it goes to the State Republican Executive Committee, the way I understand it, and then that's when hopefully other counties, including Parker County, will do the same, and it starts happening around the county, around the state. Then the State Republican Executive Committee, which is the highest authority executive committee in Texas, will take action and formally censor John Cornyn, which would be really, really embarrassing for him. And so this is one of the few things as grassroots activists we have. So I think wasn't there a slide that actually had the phone number? No, I'm sorry, that's the next slide. So anyway, if y'all want to show up and encourage the executive committee, I'm sure all the precinct chairs here are going to be supporting that. But next slide, please. Didn't we have one other? I thought there was one other announcement. But anyway, so this was some pictures taken back New Year's Eve when Andy and I went down to the border in the Del Rio sector. We spent about 36 hours there, and we saw firsthand how, I guess y'all have heard about $2.8 billion was appropriated last legislative session by the state of Texas to actually provide border security. But what we saw firsthand, and you're going to hear a lot more about this tonight, was that in essence all it did was provide babysitting functions, and that's maybe a gross overgeneralization, but what we saw is State Guard and DPS all over the place, but they weren't allowed to even touch or apprehend, certainly not arrest or deport any of these illegal aliens. And in fact, the illegal aliens would seek out the State Guard and the DPS and turn themselves in and basically being told, wait right here, here's some food and water, and wait for Border Patrol, who are overwhelmed, they're processing the enormous number of people, and they were basically being told, you'll get free transportation to wherever you want to go. And with the current situation, you're going to be hearing more about this tonight, with 4,500 a day coming in the state of Texas, this is totally unacceptable. And I'm really excited about hearing our speaker tonight. And with that, actually I'm going to back up. One of the things, I've been following this issue since 2005, and I feel very, very certain that the federal government is never going to secure this border. I want to remind you that twice since I've been following it in 2005, the Republicans have controlled the House, the Senate in DC, and the presidency under Bush and under Trump, and it didn't get solved. It was kind of disgusting today to hear Mitch McConnell on TV railing against the spending bill, which is good that he is, but he was upset because they were spending all this money on this ridiculous climate stuff, but wasn't spending money on the border. And I was really angry about that, because when he was in charge under Trump, he wouldn't even give hardly any additional money for border security. So that's the kind of stuff that makes what drives attendance for meetings like this. And so the only way it's going to happen is for a state like Texas to take action. And one of the ways that can happen, this is probably the slide I'm thinking about, is for counties to actually pass these declarations of local state disasters, or disaster, I forgot exactly the terminology, but these declarations saying, hey, we're under a state of disaster. We're asking you, Governor Abbott, to declare an invasion. And once an invasion is declared, then Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution and Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution gives Texas the right to take matters in their own hand. And so Abbott, in my opinion, could be shutting down the border next week if he wanted to. And he's not. And that's why it's important that we send a message to Austin and to Abbott that enough is enough and the citizens are fed up. And so, as many of y'all know, this has been passing. The 3 or 4 counties along the border have passed these declarations. Parker County did one last Monday. Andy spoke at it, which is awesome. This coming Monday, this is a slide that I think is missing. There we go. Okay. So I would highly encourage every one of y'all to show up at this meeting, and if you get the phone numbers, give them a call, give your commissioners a call. And if everyone in here calls those commissioners and lets them know how you feel, there's a good chance I think it's going to pass here in Wise County. If this continues to ripple across the state of Texas, then maybe finally Governor Abbott will listen to us. But anyway, it's my honor to introduce a man that's been traveling all over Texas, exposing what's happening at the border, and he's got some interesting, provocative solutions at the end, I hear. And Ammon Blair is someone that was in the active duty military, and then I think it was in 2013 he transitioned to the National Guard, and he also joined the U.S. Border Patrol, so he has firsthand knowledge of what's happening at the border. And I'm so proud of him, going around and educating citizens about just how bad the situation is. And so with that, Ammon, welcome.
All right, good evening. So I actually came straight from the river. So like you said, I'm an active Border Patrol agent. I'm on midnight shift, so I literally got off at 8 in the morning and then drove all the way up here from the Rio Grande Valley. Invasion. I don't have a lot of time, and I do want to get to you guys' questions, okay? So I already decreased the slides a little bit, but does everyone have a piece of paper? Does anyone have paper that you guys can write down or take notes or whatnot? Because I want you to write, or maybe you can think, what is your definition of invasion? What is it? What is Department of Homeland Security's definition of invasion? What is Abbott's?
They don't have one.
Oh, they have one. I've already spoken to the lawyers. What is Ken Paxton's? He just recently spoke about it. About the invasion. Yeah, definitions keep getting changed. We'll talk about that. So we're gonna go. I'm gonna show you a simple video. One of my good friends. He's actually one of my best friends. His name is Jason Jones. He watches Newsmax. All right, he's the border correspondent for Newsmax. He's one of my best friends. He always comes down and asks me to provide intel if you can put that video. All right, if you guys saw those wristbands, you guys see those wristbands? This is from a group this morning.
What I'm really trying to do is eliminate the crimes against the state and against our country and what's happening to our citizens.
Last night the guy left them, and so they just kept on walking, laid up here.
How much did they pay?
¿Cuántos es 8,000 en americano? 8,000.
8,000 to be abandoned 3 days ago.
Yes.
Is that pretty normal where smugglers just abandon them like this in the desert?
Yes, sir.
Even
All the
after
time.
they paid all the fees, all the money, they just leave them out there?
All the time.
We've been embedded with the men and women of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. We came to uncover the devastating impact of the Sinaloa cartel here, but also the collateral damage to the rest of our nation.
Chief, what's the major change in tactics you're seeing in this area?
The big shift being over the last year from drugs to bodies as the main commodity. So they're getting more money smuggling humans than they are for anything else.
If the United States government does not designate these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, I can tell you right now, all you have to do is look at what's happening in Mexico with the hyper-violence. It is coming to our country. When you talk about the cartels, we have to look at them for what they are. The United States government continues to attack the symptoms, drugs, weapons, human smuggling, human trafficking, that's all important. But there's one thing that's responsible, and it is the Mexican cartels, and we have not taken them on.
So, he talked about something that security of our nation. He talks about what their focal point is. And that focal point has been on a commodity. A war on drugs, that's a commodity. A war on people, that's a commodity. And that's one big reason why Abbott won't do the invasion clause. And we'll discuss that a little more. Now, I do want to say, where you guys get your information is really, really important. As border agents, and I was also on the border mission as an infantry officer as well, except for I was taken off the mission in March because I am not vaccinated, and I was kicked out of the Texas Military Department. Luckily, I have 22 years in, and so I was able to retire, but my soldiers were not. That's 3,100 soldiers in the 36th Infantry Division this month. But pundits, they are war profiteers. Does Dan Bongino make more money in calm water or in rough seas? Have you heard any solution come out of his mouth? No, but I bet you probably bought his book. He probably watches stuff. He'll probably come back. Yeah, you know what he did? He came down there and he fed the illegals through the Nice Refund. When we were begging his other organization, Operation Underground Railroad, for DNA tests for the child trafficking ban. So what I stress every time I go around in Texas, I stress this. I stress that you need to take everything everyone says, including myself, with a grain of salt. Was the border secure under Trump? No. It was like Enron. It was a masquerade. It was based off of false numbers. And I'll show you why. Next. Invasion. So Article Section 4, we talked about that. The counties invoked that article, and you guys are about to do so. On Monday, you guys are about to vote on that. And I'm going to share with you later on the pros and cons about that. Okay, next. All right, mischaracterization. This is from a legal expert. The people coming are actively seeking to place themselves under the laws of the United States by seeking asylum. So the idea that the first invasion in the history of the world where invaders seek to subject themselves to the law of the country that they're invading, it's a total mischaracterization of what an invasion is. That is from the Mises Institute. That's from the libertarians. Next slide. Another legal scholar in Fox. I'm afraid I'm skeptical. As they say in Texas, this dog won't hunt. They're relying on the guarantee clause of Article 4, Section 4, and that deals with an invasion, which is generally interpreted and long interpreted to mean an actual foreign invasion in the form of an army, an organized force. If you look at that last part right there, an organized force, that was Ken Paxton's argument this last week. They say they're not going to call it an invasion based off of a non-state actor. They will only call it on a state actor. So if Mexico truly invaded in. That is why Ken Paxton will not write an opinion piece like the Attorney General in Arizona did. That phrase right there. So, see that Elizabeth Newman, guess who she was? She was on Trump's border advisor team when he was in office. Okay? Immigration is not a national security threat. Next.
Is the border safe? Now I was watching a news channel and they were talking about an invasion was happening. I got a little concerned.
Look. The border is secure. The border, we are working to make the border more secure. That has been a historic challenge.
All right, next. All right, so he just came out and said that at the Alpine Institute. That was Mayorkas. If you speak Spanish, the border patrol agents call them mamucas. Does anyone here speak Spanish? No? Oh, man. All right. Okay. I live in the valley, so everyone speaks Spanish. I'm probably 1% white down there, so. All right, so he declared that the border is secure. My chief patrol agent goes out on well, he won't go on Fox. He goes out on other news agencies and says that the border is in control, that we have control of it, that it is closed, that we have operational control. Thomas Homan came out and said that Trump had operational control of the border during his presidency. Okay, all these terms and definitions that they just throw around. Right? What is operational control? The prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. Codified in U.S. Code under the Secure Fence Act of 2006. That is law. Yet, we don't go by that. And that's because people don't know. So a lot of times when you don't know, they can just change words. Next.
Where do we get the most bang for the buck? Where do I go back to my taxpayers and say, this is the most effective use of the taxpayer dollars to make sure we protect our kids from drugs? And as you know, according to your DHS report, September 2017, the southern border is now the hardest it's ever been in terms of crossing. The number of legal entries is one of the lowest levels since the 1970s. So, you know, common sense here would tell you that people are going to start probing the northern border, the border in the north, as well as our ports of entry. Where do we get our best bang for the buck, which comes back to, do we have essentially a metrics in place to gauge where we get our best bang for the buck?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. From the GAO perspective, that's a very important line of inquiry. Based on our work, DHS does not have metrics in place for assessing the contributions that these different investments are making to border security, and we have open recommendations to the department in that area as it relates to both, specifically to both technologies and infrastructure or what barriers. I would also
add, we don't know right now, based on the data we have, where the best place is to invest our taxpayer dollars to protect our citizens.
That's right. DHS does not currently.
Same question to Ms. Grady and Mr. Patel.
Yes, sir. I think one of the things to differentiate is our ability to isolate.
The Department of Homeland Security that I work for, we have no idea what's going on. I'm just going to be flat out. No joke. Just this morning, okay, they sent a group of 80. That was part of that group of 80. You guys can pass this around. And I'll talk about human trafficking and child trafficking in a second. But that was the group of Nicaraguans. Right when they did that, all of a sudden, so this group comes up, it's 80 people. They come across, okay? And us, we're not allowed to push them back. I don't know if you guys saw that leaked document on Breitbart, Texas, but we're not allowed to push them back once they hit that Guadalupe line in the middle of the river, okay? Because if we do it, if there's a drowning, I get fired as an agent now. So, this big group comes across. All of a sudden, they know that it takes the agents that are out there, which there was only 3 of us, since the rest of us are doing what? Processing, migrant care, transportation. So because of that, that's when all the other rafts start coming across. And we have no idea how many. You know why? Because our ISR assets are down. Because we have not invested in the technology necessary to understand the situational awareness around the border. That is why whenever there are groups coming across, I have to go out there and sign cut like I'm hunting. Like it's 1924. Like I'm on horse patrol 1924 trying to find illegals coming across. The GAO came out and showed that our ground sensors have 90% or greater deficiency rate. And yet, so now we have all this information. That testimony was under Trump. He didn't fix it. Congress didn't fix it when we opened the Senate and the House, just like what was stated earlier. We didn't fix it. But in the news, everyone said that we were. Right? And that's because, just like at Enron was a successful company on the outside, but it crumbled. How can a border that's so secure crumble in 1 month during the Biden administration? It is not possible. That is because everything was on 3 metrics. Because there are only 3 metrics. When we talk about metrics, there are only 3 metrics that we use that are codified in 6 U.S. code to determine whether the border is secure. Apprehensions, turnbacks, and godwills. That is it. Nothing about the Mexican cartels, nothing about China, nothing about the Hezbollah, Hamas, nothing about the corruption, kidnappings, extortions, beheadings. None of them. Apprehensions, turnbacks, and godwills. So, if you can fudge those numbers, then you can state that the border is secure. Look, guys, border secure. Obama did it, Trump did it, and now Mayorkas and Biden's doing it. And that's because we cannot measure. We do not have the necessary means to measure exactly what the border is. But I tell you who does, the country of Jordan. We just gave them $150 million to secure their border. The country gave to Ukraine. But the reason why I call out Jordan is because they're going through insurgencies and terrorism over there as well. But we continue to pump money through the Department of Defense. Next slide. So what is truth? But if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. A bad usage can spread by tradition and imitation, even among people who should and know better. We talked about that. Everyone's corrupting the language right now. In the definition of invasion, the definition of operational control, the definition of what border security is. No one can even say it. No one has the same meaning of what border security is or what a secure border is. No one does. And I'll show you why. Next. It's because this. The federal government, because they use 6 U.S. code to measure those are the only measurements that we have to determine whether the border is secure or not. Therefore, the border is only immigration related. Okay? So they first set that term. Mind you, they have a whole process on how to destroy the sovereignty of this nation. And that is step 1. Step 1, to codify in law that the only thing happening on the border is immigration. And they do so by changing their names. So is that an asylum seeker right there? Punching a Mexican National Guard soldier? What do you think? Well, we process him as such if we catch him. Next slide. Alright, so as of right now, the UN's objectives and the World Economic Forum's objectives is now our current administration's objectives. If you take the documents on the White House site right now, and then you take the migration documents from the UN, they are one and the same. They have the exact same goals. Everything is the same. That's why, if you guys didn't know, the very first week Biden came in, the UN sent personnel to our ports of entry down in South Texas on G1 visas, inspecting our computers on how we process refugees. That never made the news. Immediately he invited the UN in. Remember when everyone was so up in arms about Kamala Harris? Oh, she doesn't go to the border, she doesn't go to the border. Then she all of a sudden she went to El Paso. Why do you think that was? Do you guys know? So in the military, we always got to take a step back. You need to observe the whole field. What was happening south of her? It was the UN, in Office of Immigration, meeting in Mexico with Mexican officials right across the wall from her. Because they have now partnered with the UN, same with Guatemala and everyone else. And now there's a massive pileup. They've opened up the Panama Canal recently. All you have to do is go to Todd Bensman, follow Todd Bensman, follow Todd Bensman, follow Todd Bensman. See what he's saying. He's the only one that goes down there, and he actually goes down there. He's the only one reporting this right now. It is now a super highway. The state of Mexico is now allowing them, or the country of Mexico is now allowing them to be on 7 to 30-day visas. And they're coming straight on a super highway. And all paid for by the UN. And the U.S. State Department. Next. All right. So, Todd Benjamin, yeah, Codbensaman, Todd Benjamin. I'm here. So it's hard as an agent because I want to go out there, I want to kick doors, I want to punch cartels in the face, right? I'm an Army veteran, I'm a grunt. I just want to get after it. I really do. And we've been reduced to that. That's a new report. If you guys go onto CBP's website, the Customs and Border Protection's website, YouTube, you will see them clearly state we are now a humanitarian agency. We focus on rescues, family care, then American safety. Those are the 3 priorities first. It's right on there for you guys to watch. But when that picture up there on the left, that was done in 1924, just like this happened. When the Border Patrol was created, what was happening? Does anyone remember in 1924? Yeah, it was about World War I. Yep. Do you guys remember Ponce Villa came across the border and was taken out, so they had an insurgency, right? Also the Prohibition and the Chinese Exclusion Act from 1882, right? So all this, so the Border Patrol was created in 1924 under the Department of Labor. They were to stop prohibition, so alcohol, and illegals. So who did the security? Texas Rangers, the sheriffs, and the Department of Defense. In fact, during the Ponce Villa time, they sent 130,000 troops to the border before they sent them to World War I. 130,000. To repel an invasion. Interesting. National Guard going down there repelling an invasion. Separation between immigration and separation between national security issues. Right? So at the end of the day, I belong under immigration. And that's where they're trying to separate us again. But the problem is, they've already deemed that the only thing happening is immigration. So therefore, all the other national security issues that are happening along the border and to the interior, no one's doing anything. GPS is trying. The Texas National Guard, they're doing their darndest. The individual soldier. I'm not going to say commander and above. I'm saying individual soldiers. Okay, next. So that's what everything's been. So now that everything has been, so immigration now, that is the only thing happening on the border. Next step, change what immigration is, and that is refugees, asylum seekers, migrants, and family units. That's it. Newspeak, 1984. They're only saying that that's happening. That is it. No runners. The guys that were running away from you this morning, no. They didn't exist. Next. How would they do? So the process right now, they come to us. What am I on time? Okay. I don't know time. They come to us. We release them. They are now fighting. You've been told in the media that they're not trying to, once they get to the United States, they don't want to be seen. They're skipping their dates. That is false. They're getting lawyers to skip the line to see ICE. Why? Because every single one of them under parolee status is getting a social security number. They are receiving every single benefit of a citizen without any responsibility of a citizen. Next. And what can local law enforcement do in the United States? There's 550 sanctuary cities. We are now separating, and we just got sued, all based off, they're saying that we're racist against brown people, black people, because Haitians are black. We are now going back into the 1960s, where the cartels and everything is now being hidden under race. Racial equity. Next. 550 locations or districts in the United States right now, sanctuary. Next.
Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. I'm Rob Fitterby. An unimaginable story coming out of the U.S. border crisis. A 7-year-old girl walked by herself under the control of smugglers from Honduras all the way to Texas. That's over 1,000 miles, carrying only a small piece of paper with an address on it to a home and a location in Dallas, Texas. For more on this story, let's welcome back Newsmax border correspondent Jason Jones live in Texas. Jason, good morning. Just an unbelievable story. What are you hearing about this?
Rob, good morning to you. You know, and it absolutely is. Law enforcement officers this weekend were stunned when this young girl crossed one of the most violent regions on the southwest border, crossing from Miguel Alemán, which, you know, we go there all the time, into Roma, Texas, where you have Cartel de Gaza and Cartel de Medellín battling for territory right there. She crossed with a group of approximately 70 other individuals, mostly Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. As soon as she saw law enforcement officers, she came running to them, holding that piece of paper saying she wanted to see her mother. As they began talking to her, they learned that she had crossed from Honduras all alone, all the way to the United States. How she did it, they have no idea. She had no money, Rob. They have no idea how long she had been on this trip. She couldn't tell them. She didn't even know where she was. All she knew is that when she got to the United States, she was supposed to show law enforcement in the United States that note. But here's the thing there. Also notice she's wearing that cartel wristband. The law enforcement officer that took that photograph sent that to us. That represents a process for human trafficking, not smuggling. You have to remember, in that area, the cross in that area, Central Americans are charged about $3,000 US. So somebody paid her fee. But it's an example of what's taking place on that southwest border day in, day out. Rob, that wasn't the only thing that happened that night, though. After they processed that young girl and those 70 people, they had a gun battle that raged about 40 to 45 minutes. And then shortly after that, smugglers from Miguel Alemán brought a single Cuban female, 29 years old, across that they had been sexually assaulting and dropped her on the bank. This is what's taking place in just one night at one bend in the river on the southwest border.
Yeah.
Terrible story.
That really is
terrible.
And Jason, just quickly.
I was that agent. That's my picture. We've been sued by the ACLU, and so we can't do anything when we know that there's trafficking going on. Nothing. We are now subsidizing human trafficking in the U.S., the largest American slave trade ever in existence. Who has grandchildren or children? And I'm her last hope, and I can't do anything. Next. All right. So Mexico is a failed state. This is a leaked map that we got in 2019 showing how much of the area in Mexico that the cartels own. It's far more than this now. Next. This is the territories that they control. Next. Apparently Ted Cruz says that these guys right here are not terrorist organizations. By the way, he's the one who stopped Chick Roy's bill from passing. That's your senator. Next. This is CJNG. This is what they have in Mexico. In 2019, the CJNG already surpassed the Sinaloa cartel. Chapo's, if you guys know Chapo Guzman. He's already surpassed them. However, Sinaloa cartel, they still took down the whole Mexican government in 2019. And President Damlo had to bow down on his knee and give back Chapo's son. Right? Mexico is a failed state. Next. These are 50 count machine guns, off armored vehicles. Does that look like a mafia to you? Or an army? This is on our Texas border now. CJNG moved from Jalisco and Michoacan. They made deals with La Línea and El Paso. They've made deals with Cartel del Golfo. They're trying to seize every property, every plaza on the Texas border. If you guys, the next slide, it is not for those who have queasy stomach. So So if you don't want to see it, just close your eyes. Next slide. This is an everyday occurrence. Every single day. The beheadings are so commonplace now that they're now doing cannibalism. So CGNGS is number one. What they're doing now is they're taking their survivor, they're strapping him down, cutting out his heart like an Indiana Jones, taking out his chest while he's still alive, and taking a bite out of it in front of his face. All of this is all online for free. Open source intelligence. Go to borderlandbeat.com. You will find everything that cartels are doing south of us because you have some amazing citizen journalists. And that is the only reason why it's getting out. Next. Stats and killings. Mexico is one of the most violent. 5 out of 10 most violent cities in the world are in Mexico. Next. They now have IEDs, 279 in the last year. See that date, April 26th. You only think that's in Iraq and Afghanistan and overseas Middle East? No. The Mexican military has taken out 262 just this FY. Next. The most violent in the world. Next. Corruption. Under AMLO, it is now the 5th most corrupt country in the world. Next. Impunity. Kidnappings. That's another one. They find mass graves on a daily basis. And out of 82,000 investigations, only 0.04% conviction rate. Sounds like South Texas. Sounds like what happened in 2020 with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Go ahead, next. Cattle trafficking. I'm going to talk about this really quick. The reason why I talk about cattle, one, because of how everything is tied together. Right now, the war on meat, the war on food security, the people that are in charge of that are also the puppet masters, are the key masters. Who's seen Ghostbusters? The key master. That's the UN and the World Economic Forum. The gatekeeper is the Mexican cartels. Well, these key masters also control this, the cattle trafficking trade. Every piece of meat that you eat right now that's labeled USA beef may or may not be USA beef. And if it is from Mexico, it is 100% has blood on its hands because it's owned by the cartel now. Every single one. And you don't know that because of a little thing that Sid Miller passed or helped pass in 2015 called the Mandatory Country of Origin Labeling. Alright? So they repealed it. It's done. So therefore, any piece of meat that goes to a processing center in the US can now be labeled as a US product. So now you're eating cartel-owned beef labeled as USA beef. Next. Censor or die. That's what they live by. Next. Next. I don't have time to go over this. Next. Heck, I only have 5 minutes. All right. This is done by the Courier Journal. They did a 9-month study to show that there is a true invasion. That everything that is happening in Mexico, while it is hyperviolent, there is hyperviolence here. Look up public enemy number 1 under the Department of Justice for Chicago. It is literally labeled elemental for CJNG because they own our cities. And they did a 9-month study, Courier Journal, right there. They showed exactly how they own our studies. Small town USA. From small town USA, suburbs, big cities. They own every drug trade here. Go ahead. Overdose over 100,000. And it's done by the CDC, not by the DOJ. All these deaths are done by the CDC as overdoses. Why? Next. Because of this, the Uniform Crime Report. The Uniform Crime Report makes it so that that the cartels operate with complete impunity and under ambiguity. Because everything that is not captured, public corruption, all the cartel-related activity is not captured. It is not labeled by the cartels. It's not. So everything they do in the U.S., nothing. So therefore, every time they put fentanyl in one of these prescription drugs, and your kid just pops one and dies, that's an overdose. Not a poison or a murder. Next. I don't have time to show this. Next. Next. Just know that Tamaulipas were declared ungovernable. They were already declared a failed state in 2011. And your cattle ranchers on the border tried doing something back then in 2011. It was Governor Abbott was AG. Todd Staples was the Ag Commissioner at that time. And they decided to hire 2 generals to figure out what's actually happening on the border. And they did a military assessment on the border to shift the paradigm from one of immigration to one of national security. Have you guys heard about this report? Who's heard about this report? It's on the website right now, Texas Ag. And you can look it up, a strategic military assessment. They even went in front of Congress. They tried changing the narrative, and it failed. Because look where we're at. Next. It's okay, next. This is where we're at. We're piecemealed since Rick Perry, 2005. All right. If you want to know exactly what's happening with our Texas Military Department, we'll have. I'll stay here as long as you guys want. I'll answer any questions after this meeting. Next. Can a state declare an invasion? Yes, but it all comes down to how we view the combat environment. If we determine that the cartels are terrorist organizations, then that means anything they touch and own is the logistics of a terrorist organization, and therefore can be stopped. That would mean that human beings are a commodity of the cartel, correct? Therefore, they are part of the logistics, and therefore they can be stopped. It's all in wording. That's it. It's all about wording. And it's all about assessment. Next. Because we did it before. That was the Texas Rangers against Pancho Villa's men. They were the ones who were doing border security. Next. So this is your mission if you choose to accept it. Because right now, I know I'm out of time. Right now, this is not even the tip of the iceberg. It's kind of depressing. Right? It's a lot. What you see on the news is not even a portion of what we see on the ground. And so you think to yourself, man, what can be done? Everyone's plan right now hinges on whether the federal government or the state can act. But I'm going to tell you guys that you guys have power that's even above your invasion declaration. And you can force the state to act. And you can act as a county. And so I'm going to invite you on that mission. Next. First, what we did is someone found out about me. I went in front of a few investors, and they decided to do a military assessment again on the border. That will be done here in about 2 weeks. Our retired colonels, a few DEA special operators, a few secret squirrels, and it's going to be done. We need to change that paradigm. Next. On September 9th, we're going to break down that whole assessment that we had. And we're going to teach every single person, both on site and online, throughout the country, exactly what's happening on the border. Everything. We're not going to hold anything back. And then, after that, it's going to be a 21-day hackathon. So we figured out who right now, who's in technology? I know the guys in the back are. Who's in the tech? How fast does a startup solve problems? Extremely fast, or else they go to business, right? So a startup, they have it's called lean methodology, right? And so Stanford University is like the government is so slow at trying to solve problems that why don't we use our same process to help them solve problems faster? And they created hacking for defense. Then they created hacking for homeland security. Then they created hacking for diplomacy, which is for the State Department. Then Special Operations Command is like, wow, you guys are solving problems with design thinking, agile development, and lean startup methodology. Fast. We're talking about within weeks you have something resolved, which would take years. I mean, it took 4 years for the Army to figure out that you're going to get a SIG. 4 years to figure out to get a SIG. 4. And millions and millions of dollars. So let's do that. So what I did is how about we do the same thing? How about we crowdsource from Texans in the nation on solutions. We have the assessment. We now have all the problem statements. There are gaps that we don't have any consumer off-the-shelf solutions for, whether that's technology, policy, strategy, you name it. Why not we let Americans finally get involved? So that's what we're going to do. 3-week hackathon. At the end of that, next the 391 Commission. That's why I said there's pros and cons to the Invasion Declaration. What you guys are about to vote on, and please do vote for it, yes. Because it is all part of our plan. We need to asymmetrically hit Greg Abbott. Okay, this is an asymmetric warfare. Unfortunately, it's sad, but it is. But the 391 Commission states that if all you need is 2 municipalities within a region or a COG to form a commission, and in that commission, you guys vote for it, just like what you're going to do on Monday. You vote for it, and then in your resolution, it lays out an exact plan of what you want the state to do to secure your area, or your county, or the border. And the cool thing about the 391 Commission is the state has to act. The state doesn't have to act with an invasion clause or an invasion declaration, but at 391 they have to. So Kinney County and Uvalde City did that. They created the first ever 391 Commission, Border Commission. Kinney County received $3 million. Uvalde City received $1 million. The problem? They didn't have a plan. And they didn't have an assessment. So now here they sit. They sit there with $4 million because I'm in touch with them. I talk to them. They're just sitting there. Now they're waiting. Guess what they're waiting for now? That assessment. The plan coming from hackathons, the plan coming from citizens and solutions, because they don't have it. But, so that's why we're doing this. Assessment, summit, hackathon, 391. And we're trying to get every single county in the state of Texas, or every COG, at least the 24 COGs, to form 391 commissions and force it to act. But this is only the first. Once border security hits, we are then going to food security and war on meat. Then we're going into energy security. We're going to hit every single angle that's not being met. And we're going to force it to act through 391 commissions and an actual plan. My name is Ammon Blair. Next slide. You can email me that's my email. 18 Minutes is the group of investors that are the ones who are privately funding all of this. And they call themselves 18 Minutes because the Battle of San Jacinto was won in 18 minutes. They want to be remembered for victory and not defeat from the Alamo. All right. So if you guys have any questions, I know I'm already over time. I'll be here as long as you guys want. All right. Thank you.